This lesson actually began outside of the classroom with a lead-in activity called Newton Circles. You can actually find a lesson plan for that activity on my portfolio, but the whole point of programming this piece of that activity and of this rehearsal was to activate the students' bodies while they're playing because they seemed very uncomfortable moving while playing when I was working with them this week, which is right after they had gotten back from a trip to New York. So following the activity, we came back and I challenged them to play the opening chord of the Tchaikovsky Serenade Elegie and to do dynamic swells. I started by just showing an expansion gesture in my hands, and it had some effectiveness, so I decided to do it a little bit differently later, obviously. Here, I'm telling them to use their bodies, I'm asking them to use their bodies to create the crescendo. It was a bit of a choppy start, so I stopped them. I don't want them to get into the bad habit of not starting together once we start working on this piece. Let me try again. But then the pitch was all crazy, so I stopped and I jokingly told them that it has to sound like a chord right away, and it has to sound like a chord that we all recognize. I think they finally settled into their pitch and their attack. And I decided to show the crescendo using the sagittal space going forward instead of sideways. And then I decided to change it at the very last second and it didn't work, so I started over. And I used my body to model what they should be doing with their bodies, moving in the same direction as their sound. And this is training both of us at the same time to react to each other's signals. And I start moving faster and faster, and they find it really silly. You can hear some chuckling here, which is great. It's great to have fun, but I really think they achieved something through that warm-up. And I tell them that it's okay if it feels strange, because a lot of these kids aren't used to playing with their whole bodies. So then we move on to play the Tchaikovsky, and I give them a little bit of background info here. I think that's really important anytime you're starting a piece. Right here I'm asking actually if anyone has played it. No one had in the entire ensemble, which I thought was really fun to get to introduce them to something completely new. We talk for a second about an elegy and what that means, and just what it should sound like at the very beginning. Then we try it. This is sight reading, by the way. They've never, ever rehearsed or performed for a conductor without a baton, so there are some challenges here because of that. I'm also being a little bit crazy with my hands, but I was trying to show that the sound should be reflected in the movement and in the playing. I'm rushing, not good. That was something that I really worked on for later rehearsals. But after the first phrase and a half or so, they really settle in and so intuitively follow the physical cues that I'm giving them. I don't know if you noticed just there, I stepped off the podium because I wanted to really exaggerate this concept of moving and of using the natural direction of the physical technique of playing to influence what you're creating with your bow and your string. And I really just wanted to focus on the opening. It's a very challenging opening piece. Um, I told them it's okay that they're a little bit unsure, that it's partly my fault. I think that's really important to admit to your students if you feel like it's not necessarily their fault. And I just clarify a couple counting issues because the top three voices do move separately from the lowers, and I think they were relying too much on each other at that point. So we go and we try again. Though I'm not sure that helped because the basses and the cellos actually played of the rest of the group. But I decided not to stop because I figured they could figure out what they had to. They're such a smart bunch of kids, and honestly, why waste rehearsal time for a problem that's going to fix itself? I relied a lot on physical cues rather than speaking in this lesson. I wanted it to be almost silent. And I think they're responding very well. The attacks are changing, and they're really getting the sound. And for sight reading, this is so musical. It was the entire point of the Newton Circles exercises and of conducting this very to help me proceed. We went on after this segment of rehearsal to do various smaller sections in the opening discussing the relationship between the phrases to each other and what it really means to choose how to interpret this in terms of dynamics, etc. I thought it was a very effective first sight reading rehearsal.